Hi guys, welcome to Mikoko's Diary. My name is Michael. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. And if you are new here, you're welcome. Today I have a real estate professional here with me. You would agree with me that as immigrants in Canada, in fact, anyone in Canada, the larger chunk of our income goes into accommodation. So we're talking rent or mortgage payments and stuff like that. So today I have my friend here. He's a real estate professional and he's going to talk about everything real estate with us today. I'll be asking him some questions. So make sure you watch this video to the end. Thank you so much for the opportunity for coming to my channel today, although I'm in your house, right? So I would like us to start by a short introduction, right? So can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Oh, of course. But first, I'd like to thank you for giving us this opportunity to get together. I feel like it's important for us as a community to continue to leverage on each other's strength. And, we use that to propagate, some of the relevant information that we need for some of our people out there to make informed decisions. And particularly real estate is a very critical sector because it's arguably the largest investment that, 1 out of 2 individuals will make in their lifetime, if we're being very, very frank with ourselves.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's true.
So it's very critical to understand and to work with the right professionals and to understand how this industry works, the nuances around it, and to ensure that whoever is going into that segment of the economy, either you're going in as a buyer, you're going in as a seller, or you're going in as an investor, you're going in well informed. So my name is Imran Balogun. I'm an immigrant, just like you. I've been here in Canada for over a decade. In terms of real estate and my professional career, I have about 12 years combined experience, and that is inclusive of real estate. So how, what areas do I cover in real estate? I cover residential, I cover commercial, either on the buy side or the sell side. And I work closely with investors who are maybe, trying to diversify their current portfolio, who are trying to upscale or, just build long-term wealth from an immigrant perspective. And I work with a lot of people outside even our own community. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps. That makes sense. Well, I think we'll just go straight into it because I have one question that has been bothering me for a long time.
Okay.
And of course, if you're on social media, you're on Instagram, I'll put your Instagram handle there so people can see it.
Okay.
And it's the question of rent versus owning. That is, I think, rent versus mortgage.
Okay.
What's your take on it? There's so many takes online. So people are saying, I'll be a renter forever. Or, oh, no, I don't want to be paying someone else's mortgage, stuff like that. So I just want to know what's your thoughts about it.
I think if we're being factual, there's no generalized approach to either you rent or you own. It's a conversation of what stage are you in life. That's really the definitive fine balance, right? I think as immigrants, we need to understand that, for a country like Canada that has been in existence for about 200 years, this is a highly, heavily regulated system that is controlled largely through its credit provisions, right?
Okay.
So one of those credit provisions is through the mortgage route, right? So generally, if you're not in the best financial state, it may not be the best idea to go in the direction of, securing a mortgage because it's like a contract, right? And you need to keep to your contract.
Long-term
contract. And it's binding, right? But when you look at it on the other end, rent, it gives you that flexibility to actually make, short-term plans. You don't have to go to bed thinking you're holding the bank. So, I'll leave it at it's a stage-based decision, right? There's no right or wrong. And as we've seen, there are some people who have won extensively going in at the right time, and some have even gotten burnt as well.
Yeah.
So there's no one size fits all, right? But I'll leave it at, it's a stage-based decision, and whatever stage you are in life, that's why we are here as real estate experts to guide you, to help you investigate, to discuss with you what really matters to you. What are your 3, 5, 10-year goals? That's what would guide our recommendations when it comes to real estate, and whether you should go in the route of buying or just sticking with rent, at least in the interim. But I don't think generally anyone should be a renter throughout their lifetime. Let's leave it at that.
Okay. So now I know the side you belong to. You're on the mortgage side. Okay. Yeah, but of course, based on advice anyway, if it's reasonable and based on the stage of life that the person is on. Well, thank you so much for that answer. Anyways, the next question I would ask is that. We're in Ontario.
Okay.
In case some people watching us don't know, I live in Ontario, and Imran is here in Ontario also. I want to find out what's the real estate situation like in Ontario, and would you say it's a good time to actually enter into real estate? I mean, is it a good time to buy a house?
Frankly, quite a number of clients have actually asked me that question, and I would boldly say it here that the answer is yes. But these are economic decisions, right?
Of course.
Economic decisions in the sense that, there are multiple macro factors that impact real estate in general. One of it is interest rates. Interest rate is a really huge part of it.
Yeah.
You're looking at inflation. You're looking at, for a place like Canada, immigration is very critical.
Right.
And some of the recent emerging issues like the trade tariffs, conversations between the US and Canada, and, the aftermath of what we've seen from COVID-19. You're talking about Russia, Ukraine war. So those are macro issues, right? But at a layman
level,
at a layman, and the reason why I took you through that is because we need to keep in mind that though we live in Ontario, Toronto in particular and the surrounding area has become a global hub. Right? And the reason why I said it's a global hub, it's next to New York, it's next to Chicago.
Yeah.
Toronto now is equivalent of London. We're talking about Singapore.
Yeah, it's the most populated area in Canada.
Exactly. So it's always good to factor in those, global issues,
right.
And then we bring it back home. What are we really dealing with back home? Right? Okay. So it's very, very important to clear those things out. Having said that, it's a good time to buy. Why? Because for every decision that you have to make, you always have to look inwards. What are the recent events that has happened in the last 2-3 years? Generally, prices are down from the high end of the peak of COVID-19 period. So, and now we've seen some relief. I wouldn't say entirely, low, but we've seen some relief from the interest rate front. And we've seen 2 consecutive announcements in recent time where they've held the interest rate steady. So that's an indicator that, you should step into the market. Having said that, on the seller side, it's summer, and quite a number of sellers who maybe have gone in, on the high end of it. Quite a number are actually, maybe struggling financially already, that it has become very challenging to hold on to the mortgage. Yeah. These are some of the, indicators that for buyers who are well positioned financially, they can go into the market. Yeah, so and obviously that is you're looking at it from a guided approach. You're having I'm not advocating that you should hire me at all costs, but you definitely do need a real estate agent, a brilliant one who understands the market. You need a broker, and then you need a lawyer who's going to help you look through all these contracts, look at everything end to end, make sure that you do not have any unnecessary exposure. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I would like to know, in Ontario right now, do you think investing in real estate is still profitable? Because I know everybody believes that Ontario is a big place where you can make a lot of money and all that, but do you think it's still profitable, to buy a house here in Ontario? And what are the areas, what are the different areas here where one can still find, nice prices? I know Toronto is probably not there. Which areas, where you can find affordable houses, where those prices have actually dropped reasonably? Reasonably? So, first of all, let's get something clear. The reason why they call it real is because it's the only real asset that you can see. So would it always be profitable? Of course.
Okay.
It will always triumph any other asset class. Let's understand that.
Okay.
However, the caveat to it is timing. Timing and having the right set of professionals who understand the domain to work with you. Having said that, when you talk about profitability, are you talking about profitability from a standpoint of an investor, or you are living in the house and you are hoping it would appreciate? So I would answer it on two ends. If you are going in to buy a house where you're going to be living in, there's certain asset class in terms of the types of properties that we would generally recommend. That is where you want to live, right? So it will be okay if the cost of carrying the property is a little bit higher because it's your primary residence and it's tax exempt totally.
Yeah, for primary residence.
For primary residence.
Okay.
So some of the definitive highlights that you need to look at is what are the economic indicators or the economic fundamentals that we have in those neighborhoods that you want to invest in. So those will be the fundamentals that you need to look at. On the investor side, the investors have their own approach, right? Typically, you're looking at maybe they could even go up to 20-25%. In terms of what they want to drop at. As down payment. It's totally different from maybe someone who would go in at 5% to a certain amount, and then, the differential between that amount and the final down payment will be around 10%. So it's totally different. So it will and would always remain profitable, provided that you have the right guidance, you go in at the right time, and you go in a state where you're financially resilient to some extent, right? Because I won't bore you and sugarcoat it. Real estate in Ontario is already generally expensive, right? And this has been due to the economic activities. Canada is...
Because everybody is here.
Exactly. Canada, for example, not for example, it's a fact. Canada is about 70% service-based sector.
Right.
And where are most of all these service-based industries operating in? They are operating in Ontario, right? So there are some general indicators that would generally push real estate prices. So it's now relative to where you're comparing it to. Will it always match up with those markets? Most likely no. But the fact is, it will always remain profitable depending on the time and the professionals that are around you to guide you to make those decisions.
So I know I asked you about affordable areas in Ontario, but I would also like to, I don't know, do you have information about, I know a lot of people are in Alberta. Do you know affordable areas also in Alberta that you can tell us? But make sure you start from Ontario.
So first of all, when we look at affordable areas, I wouldn't necessarily call it affordable. I'll call it emerging areas that are promising. So when you look at areas, let's say maybe we take it from the east end of Toronto, you're looking at Bowmanville. Bowmanville has a lot of prospect. And the reason why it has a lot of prospect is because it already has the GO train. Those are the baseline of the economic fundamentals.
So they are planning to extend the GO train.
Exactly. And the next city is Oshawa. Oshawa is it's an old city that is already established with infrastructure, with schools and everything. We even have some factories that are operating. So Bowmanville is a new small town that has opened up that is still very, very connected to GTA.
Right.
That's on the
eastern side, right?
Then on the north side, you're looking at Barrie, right? You're looking at Barrie. Barrie is uniquely positioned because Barrie, Newmarket, they're almost, almost the same, right? But on the far end of it is Barrie, of course. So Barrie is well developed. We have some universities there, the economic fundamentals. You could even get direct GO train.
There's a direct train from Barrie.
There's a direct GO train. Exactly. So that's on the north side. So those are some, relatively, promising areas that people could look at. And then on the far west, it's tricky, at some point, Hamilton, Kitchener, but I feel like between the three, north, east, west, south. I feel like west is gaining most momentum. I feel like
People are moving
has gained more momentum in
Kitchener-Waterloo.
Kitchener-Waterloo. You're looking at Stony Creek,
Stony Creek is not far now. Stony Creek is nearby. It's closer.
Yeah, it is close, but they've enjoyed the price boom, that came with COVID.
Yeah.
And though the prices fell, but they've retained a certain level that has indicated that it's no longer affordable as people would hope. So it's a very unique area that has enjoyed those benefits. But having said that, there are so many other small towns that a lot of people don't know. Like you're looking at rural Caledon on the eastern, you're looking at East Gwillimbury, you're looking at there are quite a number of small towns, as long as it fits into your daily routine, because it's important to note that most people are now returning back to work.
4 days.
4 days. So the sentiments to move out of town is no longer as promising as it used to be. However, people need to understand that that's where we real estate agents come into play. We understand the development coming to certain neighborhoods. We can look at the city plan and look at what is coming in the next 5-10 years to look at the infrastructural developments that are coming that will support that, though you may be living slightly out of town, but the kind of transportation facilities that will be there would support you, so it will eventually, even out. So those are some of the considerations. Having said that, I typically don't like to comment outside my own area of coverage. And even from a professional standpoint, we are strongly encouraged not to go in that.
You don't want to poke nosing into...
Not necessarily that I don't. To be very honest, I don't see it as poke nosing.
Okay.
I see it as, when you want to be successful in real estate, you have to have a domain knowledge.
Yeah.
Domain knowledge is your selling strategy. If anyone comes here to tell you, I can cover Ottawa, I can cover virtually all the cities in
Ontario.
I don't know. People, I don't know. Some people do it, but my own strength is in being able to confidently speak about a particular market segment, a particular neighborhood, and being able to provide that well-informed
assessment
of the area. And the truth is, I can't live everywhere at the same time.
You can be omnipotent or be omnipresent.
Well, I know that may be something common with quite a number of our people, but I generally don't operate. And everyone has their own unique strength and strategy. That's my own strategy. When you come to me, I'm going to be very honest with you that this is the areas that I cover, and these are the knowledge that I have about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Which brings me to the next question.
Of course.
Well, I'm no longer a first-time home buyer, but but for first-time home buyers, what do you think they should know? What are the things that anyone should know before buying their first home?
So are you talking about what they should know in terms of readiness, or they are already ready and want to buy? I won't put you on the spot. I'll answer the question in both on the two sides.
Okay.
So in terms of readiness, Canada is heavily credit driven. So the minimum you can do for yourself is to own a credit card and ensure you're paying on time.
Right.
Don't be afraid to take on credit. I know it's common among immigrants. They want to pay cash down. That's what we're used to, where we're coming from.
But I don't want to say.
We need to make very educated moves, and I'm a living proof of enjoying, or I've enjoyed significantly, the benefits of going through the credit system, because it puts you out there. So once you walk into any financial institution, hey, I want to buy a home, I'm excited, I've saved X, Y, and Z amount of money, they're gonna ask you, what's your credit score? Right? So that you need to get in good standing. Second, you need to be gainfully employed. That maybe you're employed or you're a business owner, it doesn't matter, but understand what is your source of income. Be able to answer that confidently.
Right.
Then third is looking at the stage of life that you're in.
Yeah,
right?
like you mentioned.
The stage of life that you're in, what matters to you. Because I think sometimes a lot of people get carried away by the notion of wanting to live in big houses, but, people have different preference, right?
Yeah.
But it's all about this phase of life that you're in. So once you have been able to get those three things, and obviously stay out of crime. Because
of course,
stay out of crime, right? So once you have those things sorted out, and then you now walk up to people like us. So what do we need from you in terms of ready?
Yeah. So let's say I'm ready. I have the credit score. I'm not a criminal. I have a good job. Oh, I have some income, regular income. So what else? What should I? Now I'm ready and I'm here. What should I? What do I need to know?
Well, you leave that to us. In terms of what you need to know, you leave that to us. So, but on a personalized note, I'll go back to it that it's still personal. One question is, what type of neighborhood are you now looking at? Right? Okay. What type of neighborhood are you looking at? What matters to you? It would interest you that, some audience, let me give a practical example. Toronto core is undergoing significant gentrification because, these are areas that they built houses like in late 60s, 70s.
They have some landmark buildings, landmark shops.
So some people, those kind of buildings, it matters to them because it reminds them of history.
Yeah.
And they want to keep in close proximity to
those things,
things that matters to them.
Yeah.
While some people they are interested in something just brand new. They don't even care about what it takes, whether the journey they have to make to the nearest grocery store or whatever. So it's all tailored based guidance, and that's where it would be overly pushing it if we're giving a generic outlook or recommendations in terms of these are the things that you need to have in place. But at the bare minimum, those are the things that you need. You need a credit score, you need to be in good standing, you need to have employment, and some other things that we can now help you investigate. You're looking at your RRSP return. You can take advantage of that. As a first-time home buyer, we help you look at some of the rebates that you will be qualified for
first-time home buyers.
Exactly. And now, with the new mortgage, provisions in place now where, you can qualify for up to 1.5 million on certain houses. So those are some of the, things that we would bring to bear and educate you, let you understand these are what is out there for you. And this is how we can guide you to take advantage of, these things in particular. So
that makes sense. And I really appreciate that because I know people, a lot of people are scared, like, I don't know if I should buy a house now. Some people are complaining. So from what you've said, I understand that it's basically, it depends on one situation, right?
Exactly.
It depends on the individual.
Exactly.
And they should just speak to a professional.
Yeah, at the bare minimum, that's why real estate is very interesting. Our door is always open.
Yeah, and it's free, right? It's free to work with.
Exactly, it's free. We don't get paid until something gets done, right? And it doesn't end at getting done. It means you're closing on a property. That's when we actually,
and it's not even the buyer who pays.
It's not the buyer who pays. So you have all the ball in your court as a buyer. You go in, you engage. The government rebates. Is there to support you. We have the rates to support you. There are so many tailored, solutions that are geared towards first-time home buyers. I'm not going to be speaking from a mortgage professional perspective. Maybe at some point I could, we could bring in a mortgage professional that would give you tailored, mortgage advice that are geared towards first-time home buyers. But I do know that at least the top 5 banks, CIBC, BMO, RBC, they do offer particular mortgage programs that are geared towards first-time home buyers, just to make sure that their experience is as, smooth and easy as possible, just to make sure that, they remove all the bottlenecks that are typically associated with going into the property market as a first-time home buyer.
Yeah, that makes sense. So now, let us be fair. We need to be fair to the other side.
All right.
Because we've been talking about mortgage buyers.
Okay.
Let us talk about renters, because for most of us immigrants, when we come to Canada, except maybe you are coming with a lot of money, most of us will rent first, right? Yeah, so I want us to talk about renters too. I'd like to know, can you tell us, because I know you also work with renters, right?
Yes, I do.
I want you to tell us what kind of houses are available for someone to rent, depending on their family size. So I'll just give you an example. So let's say a husband, a wife, and 2 children. What kind of houses would they be looking at? Are they supposed to be looking at condos? Are they supposed to be looking at basements? I know the types of houses, but I want you to talk about it. Then, sorry, just before you answer, then I would also like you to talk about the difference between condos and freehold houses, because I see that a lot, and I need some.
You need some guidance on it. Okay, so first and first is, you can't tell about everyone's pocket. So you really we are not really in the position to tell them, hey, you move to the basement, hey, you live in
but what are the kind of accommodation aspects?
We have all types of properties available depending on what you can afford. So I'll leave it, I'll start at the bare minimum, right? Basements are more affordable.
Yeah,
right. Because but some are well insulated. Some are well. So the particular aspect of basements being cold, I would say it's relative to how much the landlord is willing to spend to actually put together the basement in itself.
Yeah.
Right. If the landlord is willing to put in the money, they can insulate it well. They can have heated floor to make sure that the tenant is as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
That's why when you see finished basements that the owners are living in, it's typically not as cold as when they have tenants.
Yeah. Right? Because they would take care of themselves,
because quite a number of people have their cinemas in the
basement. They make it comfortable.
Quite a number of people have their children's play area in the basement, or maybe even their nanny suits, or maybe even their guest suits. Right? They have it in the basement. But, let's not delve out of the topic, but I just wanted to highlight that, for the other aspect of what is most affordable. So we started at the basement. We're looking at maybe, depending on the functionality, let's say maybe you have a 2-bedroom, but the 2-bedroom is going to be a shared bathroom. It's not going to be...
it won't be one bathroom for each.
So these are typically more affordable. So the more functionality you have in this apartment,
the more expensive it gets.
The more expensive it gets. You see 200, 300 variations here. And these are all measured, particularly by the square footage. Right?
Okay, how big it is.
Right? But there's no limit to what you can do. You are open as a renter, but generally for new immigrants, when we look at in terms of inventory, you have more inventory on the condo side, so you are likely to see more options as a renter. So condos generally have more inventories. So renters would have more options to choose from, and readily most condos come with amenities like a gym. They have the common areas. So basic things that will help a new immigrant or at least a renter settle in properly without necessarily having to worry about. So quite a number of them do have grocery stores on their first floor, corner stores. So if you don't have it, you wouldn't have a car. Maybe you're still trying to find a job. Everything will be within your reach. And when as the inventory is already high, there's a limit to how much they can actually charge. And most of them are owned by investors. So you don't get to see the invasion of your privacy, because the investor is probably not even living in it. They don't even. They may not. They may have never even been into that unit. They may just be in a contract from that they know they own it, and then there's a property management company that is managing it for them. But comparing it to a freehold is one-to-one ownership. And, occasionally you may see the landlord come in to maybe fix a pipe, tell you they are selling the house or something. So these are things that you don't generally see in a condo.
So for buyers now, what's the difference between condos and freehold houses?
I think, the target market are two different markets, right?
Okay.
Let's have that clear, right? So the main different factors, I'll start from the financial implications, is that condos are generally more affordable because they are smaller.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're smaller, and your title is to your units, it's not on the land, right?
Oh, okay.
Right? It's not on the land, but because there are several other units within that land. But when it's a freehold, you own that lot.
You own the lot, you own the land, you own your house.
You're not, to be very fair, most lands are just for 99 years, so nobody technically owns it.
Government owns it at the end of the day.
Nobody technically owns anything, but at least you own the lot, at least on contract. And then the associated fees, maintenance costs, fees associated with condos, and generally they don't go lower, because as the condo ages,
more expensive to maintain,
increases.
So the condo fees will
always go up. So those are some things to consider. However, for bulk investors, they have their own strategy to measure their risk. And oftentimes for investors, they already know their exit strategy before they even come in. So the, maintenance fees, it's not really material to them, to be very honest, because these are things that they've been doing on a large scale. These are maybe even institutional investors. But both have their own advantages. Those are the financial implications. But when you look at the lifestyle that you get to enjoy from a freehold compared to a condominium, you're most likely going to enjoy more from from a condominium, because everything is shared. You have like a games room, so when you're hosting a party, you don't have to litter, you don't have to bring everyone into your own personal space, so you can put them somewhere where everyone could celebrate with you, spend time with you, but not necessarily invading your personal space. When you talk of the gym, if you're a gym fanatic, most of all these condominiums now have gyms, they have swimming pool, so they have quite a number of amenities that makes it attractive for youths. But definitely condominiums is stage based. There's a certain
stage of life
that you're in. At some point, when you start having kids, you start raising kids.
Space for them to ride their bicycle.
So it's relative, but obviously, when you talk of one-on-one, one-to-one, I would lean towards freehold. I would personally, I would lean towards.
Yeah, that makes sense. My last question is actually for anyone still thinking of getting into real estate in Ontario. What is that advice that you would have? Yeah, what advice do you have for anyone considering coming into real estate in Ontario right now?
I would say, first of all, is to work with a realtor. And one thing people need to understand that about real estate is not a decision you make in an instant, right? We have clients that we've been closely guiding them for close to 16 months, because we know the action they intend to take is coming in the next 2 years. So we start educating them about developing areas, what they need to do, whether it's in terms of their credit, whether it's in terms of how they need to buff up their savings, and so many tailored guidance. So it's a journey. It's not something that happens in an instant. But having said that, when you talk of what do we need to look out for when we're going into the market, there are multiple factors. You need to look at the environment. Most people are returning back to work. So, the promise of moving extremely out of town may not be as attractive. So you need to find a fine balance in it. And that's where we come in. We will tell you the emerging areas that are close to the highways, property developers that are will be able to educate you about reputable developers if you are buying pre-constructions, and if you're buying, existing properties. These are the kind of things that you need to look at. What are the functionalities of the house,
So
right?
construction is one thing we would have to talk about some other time.
Okay, of course. But I think, more importantly, though the real estate is not a journey you are expected to embark on your own. The real estate professionals are here
Make use
to
of them.
guide you, make use of them, pick up the phone. Mine is there. If you don't want to use me, that's fine. But make sure you always reach out to an agent and ask questions. Depending on how they answer these questions, that will tell you whether they have the necessary knowledge to guide you in making this informed decision.
Yeah.
But again, real estate is good, is always good. It all depends on time and who is there to guide you to make those decisions. Thank you for having me on your channel.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's really nice.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.